promiscuous nuns? And do the principles of Taoism line up more closely with monogamy or polyamory? From the downtown Kansas City streets all the way to the beautiful beaches of Portugal, friends go toe to toe as I sit down and have a conversation with my good friend, Jade Lotus. We discuss our different love styles and how to make progress even if we disagree. So sit back, grab your favorite snack and your favorite vice, and have fun with this conversation.
I found your a lot of what you were talking about really, really interesting. And also, even though like you and we have like quite a different perspective and a way of looking at things. Uh, I find you like open-minded. I think that as we've discussed, and I think a lot of people are aware that just in general in the world, there's like real issues about people being closed-minded, becoming more and more closed-minded. But yeah, I felt you had this very like holistic and honest sort of outlook onto life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my biggest thing, my main focus is creating unity. Like as much as we can, creating a world that works for all of us and for everyone. And with that is going to come a lot of, like you said, open-mindedness, and it's going to take a lot of acceptance. And it's going to especially take acceptance of people who don't think and look and act and feel the same as us and love the same as us. And that needs to be okay. Like it's really about just creating something that works for all of us and being able to accept that others too.
Yeah, I remember the good old days. We always say the good old days, the good old days when I was at school in England, the sixth form college, right? And we were what people called left wing in those days. But I tell you what, left wing now and left wing then was two very, very different things, right? And I love the way people could like really, really converse about anything and respect each other. And I just feel that is going downhill. And also when it comes to sexuality, there's a lot of things like changing. Okay, somebody's just asked me in one of my groups, how do they join the video? Let me just stick it right here. Into a few of my groups, in fact.
Yeah, there's been a lot of intolerance, it feels like, and it's just really strange the way that everybody that thinks differently from us, we feel like we need to like fight against them, and it just causes us, as we were talking about earlier, it causes us to not be able to have conversations about the things that really matter.
That are really, really important, yeah, on so many different levels, and oh, someone says he's requested to join the group. I see. So better let him into the group then.
Yeah, I mean, talking about left and right wings, I don't even know what those things are anymore. And it's just, I think that those are the things that kind of cause the problems, having those like two-party systems and having those like everything divided and just like choose a side. And then it becomes like a sport, really, instead of really trying to talk about the issues and figure out what's really going on. It's more like just trying to win.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to insecurity, and I think people like knowing themselves less. And I think as the world is getting more technological, we're supposed to be getting advanced, but I actually feel like people are knowing each other less well, not better,
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
so anyways,
And
Mike, I wanted to ask you about something. So we had advertised this event a few days ago, right? And all these people have been asking to join my group, right? And everyone asking to join my group, I always send them a message and I'm like, hey, who are you, right? And there's been like numerous people, oh, I'm Mike's partner, right? And then there's, oh, I'm the husband of Mike's partner. One of Mike's partners is always one of Mike's partners. Now, the average guy would think this would just be his worst nightmare if all his female lovers were getting together. Yeah. Like,
yeah,
explain
absolutely.
this for me.
I mean, yeah, I think that first of all, I'm probably anything other than the average male for sure. I'm in a definitely in my love style. Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing about polyamory or ethical non-monogamy is we have to say that because so many people think of non-monogamy as being unethical, but I don't even like to put that in there, that qualifier in there. Yeah, I'm non-monogamous, and so. But the thing is that the reason that people would really freak out about that is because they feel like they have to lie and they have to be deceitful about it. they have to tell different people different things, and they have to keep up with all these things. And if both of their people ended up in the same group in the same place, that would be disastrous, because then the truth would come out. But the thing about me and my style is it's very important to me to not have any secrets, to not have any lies, to not have any untruths. I mean, that's the whole thing about it, is being able to be witnessed 100% authentic. You know what I mean? So it's like, if I'm lying about something, then that is detrimental to me, because then I no longer have that connection with somebody knowing everything 100% about me. And that's amazing. And of course, they don't know 100% about me, but I can be 100% authentic around them. There's nothing that I have to keep up with. There's nothing that I have to be deceitful about. There's nobody that I have to trick or any kind of thing that I have to think of. It's just like, this is what's happening. This is how I'm reacting to it. And this is how I'm happen to respond to it as a person. And you can hopefully respond. You can hopefully take that and receive it and love me through that.
Mm. And how did you get into polyamory? Was it like you heard about it, or, and it
So it's
drew
really
you?
interesting, because I feel now, looking back, I feel like I've always had principles and ideas and feelings that have lined up with the ideas of polyamory. It was just before I didn't know that other love styles existed. I didn't know anything about it. And so growing up, of course, we're taught that there's one way to do things. And it's, especially growing up in the church, it's like, once you're married, you know, uh, monogamous, hetero, I mean, it's like very strict, like, this is the only way that you can do it. And it just never really lined up with me. And so at first, yeah, I was doing unethical things in order to get my needs met. I was being that player. I was being that person that was having to deceive people, because I just didn't know anything else. And that was like what I was working with at the time. Like, that's all that I had. And so, I mean, later on, of course, I did kind of straighten that out, and I wasn't always so unethical about it. But then it was later on, whenever I came from Compton really to Kansas, and that's whenever I met somebody, and really the same week that I got into what ended up being like a 3.5 year toxic monogamous relationship. I found out about polyamory. This person was telling me, yeah, you can just like date multiple people, and you can do that, and everything's on the up and up, and you don't have to lie. And I was just like, whoa, and my mind was just blown. And so it was interesting, because throughout that 3.5 year relationship, I pretty much had one foot. I mean, I was in all the polyamorous groups, and I was all studying in it. And I was just kind of using it as an excuse to my girlfriend at the time. I was just like, yeah, I'm really into alternative lifestyles and things like that. But I mean, really, I was just polyamorous. And then, of course, at the end of that 3.5 year relationship, we decided to try the classic the classic rookie mistake, and we tried to save our relationship by going poly. And of course, that wasn't something that she was really into, but it wasn't working, me trying to be monogamous. And so it eventually just fell apart. And then I was able to step into a relationship style that was just much more healthy for me, just kind of starting over and being able to be more free.
Yeah, you just said something which I thought was really, really spot on. And the thing is, these days, when you look at content about sex, especially on like social media, and I think like so much of it is kind of like low quality, right? Low quality in the sense of I think it's very, usually it doesn't, how can I say it? It's not critical. It doesn't look at things critical. Like I see a lot of people talking about polyamory, kink, and so on, but there's never any like, who would this work for? Who would this not work for? When is it right to do it? When is it not right to do it? It's just like, oh my God, this is like the latest ice cream. Let's eat it. Whatever they're talking about,
Mhm.
and when you said that there, and I've seen you saying this elsewhere, maybe like on a video or on a post or something like that, that people shouldn't go into poly to save relationships. And I've had people contact me and spoken to people that they had like really bad experiences with relationships going poly. Probably it doesn't surprise you that's
Oh, no, no. I mean, that's the thing about it, is you have to really be conscious about it, and that's why anytime I'm working with anybody and they're talking about going poly, I really want to get to the reason of what's going on. Like, why do they want to do this? And if it's for, like, honestly, if it's for sex at all, I'm just like, this is probably not the thing for you. I mean, like, polyamory is the thing that it's shifted the most for me and given me the most benefit is the internal work. I mean, the reason that I get into it is to be able to deal with that jealousy, right? Because I was a very jealous person, and anytime that there would be any kind of even a perceived indiscretion, I would get off my game, and it would hurt me. I wouldn't be able to perform in life like I wanted to. And that's one of the biggest benefits. And polyamory, now it's like, yeah, I mean, so you were saying some of my partners are coming in and their metas come in and they're like, hey, what's up? And I'm friends with them. And it's like, we just kind of pulled the lid off and you're able to look in and see, and it's no longer a mystery, and it's not left up to just your thoughts and your imagination creating the worst case scenario. You're seeing what it is, and it's just people loving each other. And that's really what it gets down to. And whenever you have that kind of communication that you can afford to, because you're not violating any boundaries, you're not making anybody jealous, anything like that, because we all appreciate each other's autonomy and we want them to expand in the ways that they want to and that feels good for them.
That's really interesting. Now, when you say that, because I would say I'm not a person that has been like particularly jealous in my life. Yeah. I'm also going to say I've never felt like a big draw towards poly. I think I've been poly curious, I could say, probably like that. And I wonder if that's, I wonder why that is. Part of me thinks, well, it sounds so time consuming, being poly. That said, I have 5 dogs here. Look at this one hanging off the top of the sofa. And there's two more over there. So some people might say that's time consuming as well. But it's really interesting. I mean, and the people who are watching, obviously this group, it's about Taoism. And in Taoism, most people who are practicing Taoist, which most of the people in the group are not practicing Taoist, I'm going to say, would these days go towards monogamy, right? Okay. That said, there's a whole part of Taoism which is so-called celibate, but ironically the celibates are not celibate in a sense. And then there's a history of it, and it's more in the polygamy situation where a man, in fact, some of the texts are all evolved around a man with a vast amount of female lovers in his life as well. Now, one thing I found incredibly striking, because usually when you think of nuns and monks, you kind of have a certain idea. Now, someone I know that studied with Shaolin monks, he told me that they're all having sex, which it doesn't surprise me, because I don't think Buddhism really teaches how to transmute sexual energy, whereas in Taoism, there's a big thing about transmuting the sexual energy and less about whether you actually have sex or not. Just want to say hi to everyone watching live here on Facebook. Are you enjoying what we're talking about? Do you have any comments you want to stick in the chat? Let us know. Do you want to hear about the nuns who go around giving guys blowjobs in Taiwan? The blowjob Taoist nuns. Are you interested?
I love that.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I can see I don't think this is updating. I'm trying to watch it on Facebook at the same time, but this often happens to write comments, but I don't actually see the comments. So hey everyone, okay, let's talk a bit about like some Taoist traditions, and also specifically around like the Taoist tradition there's specific, these are specific people called the White Tigresses. There's several books written about them as well. And the idea with Taoism is we want to cultivate energy. Okay. Now, when we cultivate energy, if the energy is balanced, we're going to say looking really youthful. We're going to like be sexy. So cultivating energy is very much about being sexy, being youthful, being in touch with sexual energy, but in a different way from your average Joe out there, right? One of those being that we're very relaxed and expanding into the sexual energy without needing it. I think another one is there's a big focus about it being an internal experience inside you. So it's all about you going within. Whereas when we look at sexuality out and about in the world, it's all like, I mean, look, how much more looking out can you get than looking at porn, right? Well, while you're masturbating, then obviously like, there's the whole thing of like, kink, I think in a way it's quite externalized. It's quite externalizing. It can be quite externalizing, you know. And even the whole thing. Oh, Siska, quiet. Sorry, guys. So yeah, it can be quite externalizing, you know, and even the whole thing of like, you know, I not having fun with this person, I'm going to just move on to the next. That can be quite an externalizing thing as well, you know, not necessarily, because it all, like you talk about it being about the inner work. And I think that's really eye-opening that you said about that, you know.
So yeah, that's something that I actually really want to address, because I really want to like draw a line here, because we're talking about on one hand like polyamory, and then we're talking about like kink and sexuality and those kind of things. And a lot of times people confuse those, and they try to think like, oh, polyamory is about all this sex and it's about all this, like, and those are not the same things. And there can be a lot of crossover, and a lot of times sex is involved in polyamory. A lot of times sex is involved in monogamous, other kinds of relationships as well. But in polyamory, there's also celibacy. You know, those things that you're talking about. It's not really about that. It's really about the way that you love. And so, like for me in my polyamorous relationship, it has nothing to do with like, oh, I'm done with this or I'm tired with this, going on to the next one. It has nothing to do with polyamory. It has nothing to do with my style of relationship. Like I'm in 3 very committed, serious relationships right now, and I mean I'm very covetous of them. You know, like I'm really wild about my partner. This is the most important thing to me. And you know, I can definitely see there is something. I know that there are people that do that, and they are kind of serial monogamists, and they do things like that. You know, they get sick of one thing and they move to the other. And honestly, I think that is whenever things are not imbalanced. And I mean, you're talking about, you know, Taoism and this kind of energy. And as you know, I mean, whenever we met, we were actually in a place where it was very heavily focused on energy and tantra and that kind of stuff. And I play in that energy a lot with my partners as well. You know, it's very much about energy, and you're talking about transcend. Like you know, me and my partners, like we definitely, that's the same kind of verbiage that we use too. I mean, it's transcendent, and sometimes it's definitely physical, and it's definitely raw, and it's definitely earth, and it's corporeal for sure, absolutely. But definitely taking part and understanding and playing with the energy of it is really what that's the transcendent stuff as well. But I just want to make sure that we like separate that, like, and because that's one of the things that we have to fight against so much, because the word sounds the same, but polyamory has nothing to do with polygamy. Like that, those are 2 completely different things, and it's not anything necessarily having to do with sex either. Yeah, like those 2 can be there, they can overlap, but we definitely need to make sure that we're drawing that distinction.
Separate. That's interesting, you know. And I think also when you take anything like kink, like polyamory, and all these things, they are to some degree being depicted in pornography, which obviously that is like the biggest media consumed by men in the entire world. Like there's more men watching porn than like reading like every single newspaper like put together,
Oh yeah.
basically, you know. So it's like a massively influential social media. And I've heard, I mean, for example, about women ending up in bed with a guy who next thing he has his, you know, hand around the throat and he's trying to strangle her, and he probably thinks what he's doing is normal because he saw it in porn, you know. And porn does seem to at times portray a kind of, you know, it's not polyamory, right? Because that's not real kink, and it's not real polyamory. I think it can then get into people's minds certain ways of behavior, but they're not bringing it into the conscious, and they're not talking about it, and they're not having the kind of conscious, you know, like people can go to kink, conscious kink events, or be involved in conscious kink communities and have it be really mind expanding, where probably a lot of people have kind of bad experiences with it, you know. Then the same as that with poly. And I think that what was just coming up for me then is it's so important that we're being conscious about things, we're bringing them into the light, you know. We're not just kind of keeping them in the subconscious and having all these questions and just thinking, oh, I hope that's going to be okay. And
Yeah.
this is a huge problem with sexuality. I mean, my God, I just find like I've been having like my social media, especially on Instagram, like super censored recently, and I'm looking at the posts and reading them through, and I don't even understand why. Yeah, I'm being so censored, but it's like there's this huge taboo about anything to do with sex. And to be honest, when I see people writing about sex and they're like S and then dollar and then X, and I'm just like, why do that?
Yeah.
We need to talk about sex. We can't make it like this thing, you know. But
Yeah.
you know, there's so many people with sexual problems, sexual uncomfortable about things, wanting things they can't talk about, just very, very confused. And it's causing like a massive amount of harm. And I think even like a lot of even crime relates to actually sexual frustration, you know. And in terms of like cheating, and there's people who literally are so devastated and destroyed by someone cheating on them. But if only people could actually have like conversations, because usually if a relationship has got to the point of cheating, something's been going wrong for a while, you know, but it's never been about. Whereas you know, and I see this with poly, and I do think it's definitely a positive that, hey, you know, if you're going to do that, hey, let's talk and let's all be comfortable and let's all bring it on the table and deal with it, you know.
Well, that's what I deal with the most, and that's what I really love helping people with, because I mean, like you said, it's like stuff has probably been going on for a while, and a lot of it is probably, or in a lot of cases, as it was in mine, they probably just they're more aligned with a different love style, and they just don't know about those because, like you said, we're not allowed to talk about it because there's so much stigma about it, and because people feel like if they even bring it up, then they're gonna get canceled, or they're gonna, you know, I mean, we live in this really puritanical time on earth. It's like people think that we're like really progressive. We've gotten more progressive and more progressive, like you were saying, but right now is a very puritanical time where we're not even allowed to talk about things, but that's not good. That is, it's one of the most desired, it's probably the most desired, one of the most sought after experiences in human experience. And it's literally the most natural thing about it. Like, none of us would be here without it. And so why not learn how to do it right? Why not learn how to do it healthy? But in order to do that, we have to be able to talk about it. And we have to be able to be accepting of different love styles, as we were talking about earlier. And we're just not there right now. There's just so much, anytime it even comes up at all, people, like you were saying, so I do know whenever you're talking about, whenever people are, you know, they'll do like S $ or whatever, X or whatever, and they won't want to say it. I mean, a lot of that is because the algorithm will pick it up and they won't show it to people if you put anything even related to sex on it. You know, it's so wild. So people have to like to get around it. And I mean, I know a lot of it is part of the application themselves. Because I mean, I know I was like, I'm trying to advertise and things like that on Facebook. And if I try to put an ad, they won't even, if I'm even talking about dating, they even told me one time, because I was even talking about dating, didn't even have anything to do with sex. But just because it was talking about dating, which was related to sex, they wouldn't even post my ad. And so it's like, yeah, if we're not even able to talk about these things, and there's no way that we can make progress and be as safe as we can with it.
Well, the algorithm is really weird, because I see some things that I'm like, wow, yeah, that's like pretty weird. That's up on social media.
Right.
And then other things, you're talking in a really sensible way about stuff. You know, but I do think I did hear that they don't let male dating coaches who are talking to men on advertise, the reason being that there was a lot of people teaching guys how to be like pickup artists, and they wanted to stop that. So yeah,
for sure. But that's the thing too, though. It's like then we're only talking about the negative side about it, because we also need to teach men the positive side about it. You know what I mean? Like, so, you know.
Yeah, we say in Taoism, where the attention goes, the energy flows, and it's like all the attention is on something negative, so there's just no energy, you know, no positive energy, basically, you know, I should say. So I'm just interested about the jealousy thing. I wanted to just talk about that before I go into the nuns, right? Okay. So like I said, I don't believe I'm a person that was ever like intensely, insanely jealous. Yeah, I think I've been envious, which is different from jealous, right? Yeah. But I noticed with my partner, who, you know, we are very, very much monogamous, and I would call us kind of quite traditional as a couple, you know. But I would say, like, we play with the energy of jealousy as a fun thing that can kind of be a turn on, you know. Not even like necessarily in a kinky way, because we're not particularly kinky either. We're just Taoist, you know, which is what energy, right? You know, but you know, when sometimes I see these posts and so on about polyamory, and they're just kind of saying like, oh, get rid of all your jealousy. And I'm like, well, jealousy can be fun, yeah, you know, if it's in the consciousness. I think that's the key to it. It can be a tool to play with and have fun with it. I feel like it can create magnetism, you know, as a couple. And I also think, like everything, you know, when these the let's say neo spirituality or pseudo spirituality or whatever, you know, and it's like, oh, angry is bad, oh, jealous is bad, all these feelings are bad, but these feelings are just part of how we feel as human beings. And I think what's important, and I suppose this is what you've kind of been saying you've been doing, is learning to navigate the feelings.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I want to make something clear here. I have not like transcended jealousy. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely still get jealous. That's definitely still a part of me. But the thing that it is for me is whenever I don't like, I always want to say that I wanted to be bulletproof. I don't want something to be able to control it. Like, if I wake up and then my partner or somebody that I'm interested in is going on a date with somebody, I don't want that to ruin my whole day. Like, I can't get out of it, and it just like I don't want that to be able to control it. And that's where I was before. It wasn't in a place where I was like having fun with it or playing with it. Sure, absolutely. I'm so happy that you and your partner, and it makes you deeper and closer. I absolutely and definitely do that. You know, I'm so happy about that. But what I'm talking about is like, yeah, it was like devastating in a way that like I wouldn't say that I was just like completely like like I'm gonna like, you know, harm myself or anything like that. But it would definitely be on my mind. It would affect me enough to where I wouldn't be able to go after the things that I wanted to. I wouldn't be able to have the day that I wanted to. It was like that was the thing I was thinking about. It would completely take away, and like that was, you know, it would be like this person that I love is doing something that's fun for them, and it's destroying me. You know, what does that say about me? So I need to know. This is the work I need to go. I need to go internal so I can have what we call compersion. You know, it's like, hey, this is the person that I love, and they're doing something that's fun. But it does. I don't need to be there for me to be happy about that. I love them having fun, and so really being able to shift kind of that perspective to where it's like I don't own this person, and anything that I really need, I can give to myself, so that I don't need to let that ruin my day. I don't need to let that ruin my energy. I'm just going to do the work of myself. And if I am feeling kind of some kind of a lack or something like that, then I'm going to go give the whatever I feel like I'm lacking to myself, because I always have me. So I'm bulletproof. But so that's really what it is for me. It's like I don't want jealousy ruining my life. I'm never gonna like, yeah, jealousy, like you said, is just a part of everything, and it can be useful. It can be good. And I'm not getting rid of it. I still have it right now, but I don't want to. I don't want it to be in the driver's seat.
I honestly think when people say, oh, I've just transcended it, it's like, no, you've just repressed it and you've just caused yourself an energy blockage, you know. But
See, I've done that too.
I think what I can relate to there is I used to struggle with like fear so badly. And like in particular, fear of heights. Like I would just stand on a table and go completely dizzy, you know. And I
Mm.
remember way back years ago, like 20 years ago or more, you know, my boyfriend at the time started taking me out rock climbing, right? You know, and at first, so in an indoor climbing wall, by the way, you know, and at first it was like really, really scary. But slowly, as I was facing my fears, I stopped getting like controlled by the fears, you know.
Mhm. That's
So
exactly it. That's exactly, and that's what I was talking about, like taking the lid off of the can. Because whenever we're able to talk about this in relationship, and I think this is something that polyamory happens to afford in my relationship, it's afforded me a greater birth of communication. But it's like whenever we're able to talk about things, like at first, whenever like if my partner's going on a date, then I'm gonna start getting jealous, and I start imagining the worst case scenario. Of course, this is a person who's 6'4", 220. They're driving a Mercedes and they're so rich, and they're going to take them away from me, and they're going to do all this kind of stuff. And, you know, your mind just makes up like the worst case scenario if you let it. But whenever you just take the lid off and you just go meet them. Like I meet my partner's husband. I meet my partner's other partners, and I see they're just regular people, and they just have love. Like they have the thing that they have, and we have the thing that we have, you know? And so it's like we're able to just, like you said, it's just being exposed to it so that you're able to see the reality of it, and you're not stuck only with left to whatever your imagination is gonna think up, because that's usually the worst case scenario.
yeah, yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. So should we talk a little bit about what these nuns and Taoists do,
I
and
would
maybe
love
for
to
people
hear about that.
who aren't watching, because this can kind of seem a bit weird and shocking. And it first shocked me at first when I first heard about it, actually, you know. So what is Taoism all about? If you're a practicing Taoist as opposed to a theoretical or religious Taoist, what you're actually doing with your life is you're cultivating energy, and you're doing these exercises and these practices to build up energy. And probably the most powerful energy that we have is our sexual energy, right? So you do all these different exercises. It ranges from everything from massaging your breasts or your balls to like, different kinds of meditations, moving sexual energy through your body, working a lot with your internal organs as well. Jade egg is also a part of Taoism. And we have this, what we call solo cultivation, right? And then you have what we call dual cultivation. And the person I learned with, who's Mantak Chia, and he teaches husband and wife dual cultivation, or, one-on-one, dual
So
cultivation.
dual is like two people.
Two people cultivating energy together. Yeah, two people are cultivating energy together, right? Okay. So yeah, he teaches you first how to do it on your own and then how to do it in a partnership, basically. Okay. So how does that work? That the man and the woman, but it can be done by lesbians, it can be done by gays, it can be done by transsexual people as well. But it's generally, the texts talk about man and woman doing it together. It does appear to be that in the culture there was a lot of some kinds of sexual contact between women was quite common as well. I think that for non-gay men, it's not encouraged to have sexual relations, but for non-gay women, was thought of as healthy, from my understanding of it, from some texts I've written. I guess like looking at the context would be like maybe the man had 10 or 100 or whatever wives, and he'd go off and he'd leave his wives together, and they would take care of each other's sexual needs, so to speak, and I was reading about, they would like make like a model of their penis out of either wood or jade or something like that. So like a sex toy, actually, and leave it with the main wife for her to take care of the needs of the, of the other women while he was away, basically, And so now about these white tigresses, right? I found out about them, and I will be honest, when I first read the book, I was quite shocked about it, because what are they doing? Okay, so there is this whole thing in Taoism as well, which is called sexual vampirism. Okay, now obviously vampirism, in a way, is happening unconsciously all the time, but then there's conscious, and it's a part of life in a way that we give and take, so to speak. We can say, yeah, obviously some people are more energy vampires than others, but then there is this whole strain in Taoism, which is actually about taking other people's energy, right? Okay, it's something that I would say the modern Taoists pretty much disapprove of, however, when you look at the traditional people practicing from this cultivation, the idea is, for example, when a man and woman has sex and the man ejaculates, he loses his jing energy. Okay, when a woman orgasms, clitorally, I would say a clitoral orgasm would cause her to lose the jing energy. Full body internal orgasms do not cause the loss of the jing. Okay, so the idea is you refine your own jing, which is your essence, which is linked to sexual energy and DNA, but it's not any of those single things. It's them and those things and more, right? It's kind of what creates us as physical beings. So when a man and woman, say in a partnership, are dual cultivating together, they're sharing the energy and growing and working with the energy together. So I think that's the main reason why most Taoists are monogamous, is that they prefer to just do this with one person, because if you're cultivating with one, then you're cultivating with another, it can become like awkward. Now, interestingly enough, it seems to be, from one book I read, that a lot of the texts that have survived are actually talking about more like what could be referred to as a vampiric approach to it. So taking another person's energy. And I believe this grew up around, for example, you had the actual emperors. They might have like 3,000 female lovers. And I do believe some of them literally ejaculated to death. Yeah. So, you know, they did an experiment on rats. Penny was watching knows this experiment on the rats, and if he just was with one female, he would have sex and then it would be chill. But if he had endless females, he would have sex until he actually died. And apparently this can happen with people.
I have heard that.
There's some people that have actually jerked themselves off to death, right, watching porn. Yeah. So anyways, like with that, given that explanation, a lot of the texts seem to be, the guy does not want to lose his energy, because imagine if all 3,000 women take his energy by the semen, he's going to be screwed. Yeah, basically, you know, quite literally in more than one sense, you know. And so he's trying to make her come first, which kind of has a nice side to it, because then he'll her energy if she comes first, right? Or if he comes first, she'll take his energy. There's also elements of it where if you learn to work very well with energy, like anything, you can suck another person's energy. I'm just going to say, someone like myself is going to know, yeah, I don't want to take someone else's energy, especially as I'm cultivating my own energy. I don't want to be picking up someone's bad energy, and do you know what I mean, and traumas, what you have it anyways, you know. But so it's not something that Taoists go around doing or consider is a good thing to do, just to say, but there is a lot of historical text about it. Now what they do, it's not quite okay. So even say, for example, what I've heard from someone is, even if like you met a sexual vampire, right, and a woman, right, and she was having sex with you and she was sucking your energy, it would take about 3 weeks of you having sex to notice drainedness going on. And it's not like you're going to just, it's not like Dracula that you're just going to like drop down dead or something. And hey, we can have sex with people and feel drained afterwards, because it's not an match. Anyways, so to get back,
I just wanted to know, do you know if there's any like if does it ever talk about any kind of like defense against that kind of energy, or if they're just like completely
I mean, if you have strong energy, and I actually realized at some point when I was cultivating energy, I had to be very careful who I was having sex with, because it was actually like, if my energy would be too strong for like a lot of men, it would not be good for me to partner with them. You know, I could end up like actually like causing havoc with their system just because of my own energy was too strong. So I would say cultivating your energy, building a force field around you, you know. But I think also like awareness of what's going on, because what do these guys, how do these women take the energy, right? So they generally have like one male partner who's a monk. They don't generally have penetrative sex with him. But what they do is they give oral sex. Yeah, they suck his dick, give him a blowjob, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And the idea being is they want to take the jing from his pre-cum, not the actual cum, but the pre-cum. Now, presumably, if the jing is coming out of the pre-cum and not the cum, I don't even know how much energy is possible for the guy exactly to be losing, right? Okay. But she would do things because, for example, when there's arousal, you can work with the energy. So it was talking about them even doing things like going on the bus, dressed really sexy with short skirts and kind of opening her legs towards a guy, getting him horny, and then meditating with the energy. Again, in that situation, I don't see how she could be taking a lot of energy from him in that circumstance, especially doing it like one time on the bus. And it seemed to be she would have a number of other male partners, some maybe long-term, some maybe short-term, who should be doing this harvesting of the jing out of the pre-cum. Now, a lot of them would know what she was doing. Not everyone would know, but a lot of them would know, right? I mean, when I first heard about this, I was like, oh my God, this is like vampirism. This is really, really bad, you know? I was speaking to a male friend who also cultivates energy, and he goes, look, come on, Jade. Yeah, he says, if one of those sexy women came up to me, or like 99% of guys, and said, can I suck your dick? I'm going to take some of your energy from your pre-cum, yeah? What guy is really going to be like, oh no, you know, I'll
sacrifice a little energy for that.
Yeah, you know, thing is, you know, maybe they get back from the scenario. I can't say I fully understand it. Yeah. But I just think like it's super fascinating. This whole way of life. I mean, they're apparently some of them are like 60 years old and they look about 25. Yeah.
Wow.
But a lot of them, they have this like mad way of like rubbing their breasts, doing things with their feet, with their vagina. I've tried some of the exercises. Sometimes they're like quite profound. They're very, very detailed things like that you end up sort of doing with your body as well. Like very detailed and kind of intricate, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just very, very interesting because it's like this is a culture that's probably been around for thousands of years, you know. It's like the Agori, you know, the Agori, they're these kind of like guys in India that they never wash or brush their hair, and they put the ash of like cremated bodies and even eat dead bodies. They don't kill the people, but they go to the crematorium. They have to live for 12 years in the crematorium before they can be initiated into the and it's this ancient culture that's survived in India, and they're not actually harming anyone, even though it's a bit like, whoa, dude, yeah, what are you doing?
A little bit.
That's a bit far out. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just so interesting how these different cultures, you know, and it is a culture. It comes from China, right? But a lot of the Taoists left China to live in Taiwan, and there's apparently like large amounts of Taoists actually living in Taiwan. That kind of left China, although there are still some in China, but I think maybe they took these kind of like more esoteric practices sort of, you know, with them, and they all live together, and they've got this kind of like white tiger's mama or whatever it is. I mean, this guy was saying it was a guy that studied them and wrote some books about them, and he's gone and he was talking to the woman, and she noticed some health problem, and I don't even know what it is. Yeah. And she said to him, suck on my nipple like a baby. Yes, just suck on it and suck on it. You're going to do it for like an hour or something like that. And he said after a certain amount of time, like a liquid came out of her nipple, and he was like healed by this liquid, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's. I love all this ancient knowledge seems to be resurfacing, coming back up. Like you said, some of these cultures are ancient in the way that I feel like a lot of the times we're rediscovering our body as this machine. You know, I mean, these amazing abilities that we've been neglecting for so long because, like you said, we've just not been able to. We haven't lived in a society that's been acceptable of us even talking about it. And I mean, some of the things, like we know that touch is absolutely necessary in babies. If they don't get human touch, then they die. And I mean, it even goes further. I mean, do you know about this? Like real quick, I just want to talk about the story of this Yun Mi Pak. I'm probably pronouncing this completely wrong, but she's one of the last people to escape from North Korea. And she was talking about the situation there, and I mean, it's just dire. They're literally starving and working everybody to death. It's a big camp there, and she was talking about these people. They don't have any food. Literally, they're dying of starvation, and they'll have like one little bowl of peas or whatever left, and like on their dying bed, they're trading this last bit of food for homosexual sex. They're not homosexuals, but they're trading it their last little bit of food for homosexual sex, like just to have that connection or whatever. I don't know the psychology behind it, but it's just like, look how important touch is. Look how important intimacy and all of that is. And whenever we're not able to talk about it, then I mean that's why these situations occur. And I think that you're exactly right that that's why a lot of the problems that occur in this world are happening right now. So people they're sexually frustrated. They don't know how to work with the energy. Like you said, it's one of our most powerful energies that we can use, and we don't know how to work with it. So people just masturbate too much, and they just do whatever, and they just waste all of this energy. And it's like we really need to be able to talk about it so that we can get it more in a line.
Yeah. And I think like when it comes to social skills around sex, I feel like it's going downhill. It's getting worse. It's not getting better. And like the standards of what people are kind of expecting out of sex is just like the whole intimacy for the majority of the people almost. It seems to be kind of like disappearing out and away, So I think like, cultivating this intimacy, which is another form of energy that it's just so important that we do this. I mean, did you see there was this stabbing in Sydney in Australia, right? Some guy stabbed a load of people, yeah, maybe like, I don't know how many people, like quite a few people, and basically pretty much all women. And at first everyone's like, oh, it's another Muslim attacker. Well, it wasn't a Muslim attacker. It was basically the guy, and it's so heartbreaking because there was actually a video of his dad, and his dad was like in tears, and the TV was asking him like, what's going on? So basically he said his son had like no social skills, and he really, really wanted a girlfriend, and he got so frustrated he's gone and just stabbed a load of women. Yeah, you know, and he actually a security guard as well. One male died who was a security guard, a Muslim guy as it happens to be, who tried to stop the attack. But you know, yeah, I just saw that this morning and I was just like, oh man, you know, this is just so sad.
We're in a connection crisis. We're in a connection crisis, and it's like this perfect storm of everything that's coming in that's helping us to just stay separate from each other. I mean, we're more connected than ever because of our devices, but then we're also more separate because of them as well. I mean, I think they were talking about in the Japanese culture, there's like 5% of people like don't leave their house at all because they're just so frustrated and just over it. And they've been doing things like renting sisters and things like that, so just so they can have some kind of a connection. And I think that you're talking about something earlier. You're talking about intimacy, and I like one of the things that we talk a lot about is being able to separate intimacy from sex necessarily. You know, because a lot of times people they think, oh, intimate, oh, that's sex, and I gotta, oh, like whatever. And I mean, if you look up intimacy in Google, it says like to be well acquainted with something, you know. And you know, I talk a lot about the inside out method, which is, you know, there's three connections, and it's the first one, and it is in order, is to yourself, and be in the intimacy with yourself and being connected with yourself and having self-love and self-acceptance. You know, I think that's where a lot of it stems from, because then we a lot of times we want to skip to that second connection, which is connection with other people, which is the outward, like you were talking about. And whenever we try to get to that one before we've taken care of what's inside, then of course we're going out there unresourced. You know, we're going out there with not knowing what to do, not knowing how to ask, how to get our needs met, and a lot of times not even knowing what our needs are. Not knowing what we want, what we need, because we're not connected to. And I mean, if we really get into it, we do know on some level what we want, but really what it is we don't accept it. We don't accept what we want because society, because our teacher, our parents, pastor, you know, whatever has told us that it wasn't good and that we weren't able to go after that, and that it was bad and we need to get rid of it. And so, and then we don't have any platforms to talk about it. So we just push it down, and then we go after the thing that we do know, which is just trying to get it from somebody else without any resource at all.
And I think there's a lot of, I think what you call serial monogamy, or like a lot of people having like casual sex, and it's not coming from an empowered place, you know, that maybe some people are just looking for what we call notches on the bedpost. I think you might call it a body count out in the US or something like that, you know, or maybe that's just the modern word for it. Or, you know, people are literally like having sex with people out of insecurity, or like hoping they're going to somehow find themselves or liberate themselves. And, you know, often it just ends up, it's not done consciously, and it just ends up with like negative results.
That's it. It's not conscious. It's not conscious. And I feel like the people that have the message are kind of being stifled right now. You know, it's like, and this is why you said you've been seeing a lot of my stuff come out. It's like, yeah, I feel like this is the time. It's like we need it. We need men. We need people who are more conscious and who are more connected with themselves, and then are able to share that with their partners, with their peers, and with the world.
And I also think, like, when you look at kids growing up these days, you know, I remember when I was a kid, right, you had got some porn magazine, and it was like a woman with like, you know, saggy breasts, right, a big hairy vagina with her legs open, and it was just like such a normal looking lady, basically. You know, I remember when I first saw porn, that was what I saw, you know, and I was like, whoa, okay, you know. Then I remember the fake breasts coming in and them looking a little bit, you know, but what it's gone to now, it's almost like a lot of them, they look like more like AI robots rather than actually something real. And also, from the very limited amount of porn I've seen, it's like completely stripping away the intimacy, the connection, the love. You know, I remember someone added me to this Telegram group, right? It's called Mulher de Corno. If you speak Portuguese, you'll know what this means. Yeah, it means basically cheating wives, right? So all these people are putting these porn videos, right? These homemade porn videos, and it was like just about every single one of them was doggy style, right? Not to say there's anything wrong with doggy style, not to say you can't do doggy style, but it's also a less intimate kind of a way to, do you know what I mean? In a way, you need to be very intimate, in my opinion, to do that. But a lot of people actually do it when they're not intimate. And what happens with so many women is the whole vagina shuts down. They stop literally feeling anything in the vagina. They need like really, really rough sex and a big penis, like even to feel anything. And I think it all comes to like, yeah, like you said, there's the connection with the self and the connection with the person. But when we don't have that connection with ourselves, and then you can be like chasing sex or masturbating and you're like scratching an itch. And it's not that any of those things are wrong as in of themselves. It's not that videos of people having sex are wrong, but it's like the way it's kind of adapting into, the world we live in. And I suppose the people want to make addictive content because then they get more money out of advertising.
I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, it's the same thing with news. That's why all news is bad news. It's because that's what sells. And I just want to drop in that yes, there is a lot of that kind of porn that is about cheating wives and about the mailman and about stepmom and steps, all this kind of stuff. But I do want to say that there are sites that they're a little bit harder to find, but which is not as popular. But there are sites that do focus on real. Like I know one for sure called Lustery, and it only allows real couples to come on and share like their actual real experiences. And like I don't know what your take is on porn or whatever, but I just want to say that to people who are going to watch porn, if you are going to, then yeah, find healthier examples because they are out there. Lustery is one of them for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that's just the thing. It's like, it's all about doing the internal work and then being able to share that. And I mean, yeah, this the fact that it was always doggy style. I understand what you're saying. Like maybe if it can, like maybe there's a theme going on here. Maybe we could actually incorporate some intimacy into it. And yeah, I would just, if you are going to, then find some better examples for sure.
I mean, the majority of porn is to, let's say, sex videos, what McDonald's is to food,
Yeah.
It's just junk, yeah, basically, And I remember in the 90s, right, we used to have these erotic movies, right, and it would be like a whole movie but with erotic in it, but it have the whole story and the emotions, and I found it like really, really beautiful, So when I've seen porn in my life, I've just found it like really dry, and so I'm fine with like erotic movies and so on, but when I've seen like porn, I just always reacted to it just like, this is like something in it just felt yucky, and also I've heard that often the actors in it may feel pressured about things, or there may be drugs being taken, or they're not very, like, it's not a hell yeah coming from them, do you know?
I do know about that, and I have actually had the chance to be in the industry, and I've talked to some of the really top stars and seen what they've said about that. And I mean, these are people that have like businesses and they're entrepreneurs, and they've blown up their business really big. And so, I mean, listen, of course, I'm sure there's going to be that. I feel like there's going to be that in a lot of industries, and surely, especially at certain levels. But I would just say they have podcasts out, and I would just say do your research and talk to some of them about that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, when I first started talking to guys that were talking to me about being addicted to porn, I was like, no way. Yeah, I didn't even imagine it could be a real thing, but it does seem to be, yeah, I think also what I found like off-putting about it as well was you would see the women were all clearly augmented, augmented with fake lips, fake breasts, and God knows what, And to me, I'm like, okay, I don't relate to that. For me, I don't relate to it, so that as well. But I would say, there was a few erotic movies I absolutely loved that would probably date back to the 90s, but for myself, for my own taste, I mean, I even find like, sometimes I've watched like Netflix, yeah, and the way they now seem to be showing on Netflix or and so on, like sex scenes, it's like it seems so transactional. You know, even I watched Lady Chatterley's Lover, and I was hoping for some really juicy, emotional, sort of nice, connected sex. And it's like, I remember in the old days you had foreplay, right? It's almost like there's just almost no foreplay. There's no, which means there's no buildup of tension. And then it's like, oh, now the guy's just going like a rabbit, you know, and okay.
Yeah, it promotes unhealthy, whenever it's like that, it's like it promotes unhealthy habits. Because like you were saying earlier, whenever you see that, then you just start thinking, oh, so that's how it is. And then I see a lot of men or penis owners that will then have self-esteem issues because they're like, oh wait, I'm not like that. And it's like, well, that's not reality. Not a lot of people at all are really like that. It's just cinema. It's just cinema.
Yeah. And I think also like it promotes like, oh, quick, have sex and release and have your orgasm and finish. Yeah.
Right.
Whereas like it's definitely not. Although I do remember a friend of mine sent me this video that was actually on Pornhub, and I remember it was showing, I think, the lady's hand, and the guy was just going like this on the lady's hand. It was actually a tantra video. I don't even think it involved sex. Yeah, it was
There
yeah.
are sites that are dedicated to that have, like I was saying earlier, that are just dedicated to Tantra that are more high vibe. It's just if you kind of have to know what they are, you kind of have to search them. But yeah, they are out there. And if you just search like regular porn, if you just find like whatever, it's probably not going to be anything good or anything else.
But you know, and anyways, I was watching this thing with the hand, and I was thinking, oh my God, that is so sexy, right? But then I was also thinking, like, a lot of people would be, and this is what they say porn does, it's like it desensitizes people, so that then looking at that isn't, you know, they say then people need like more and more and more each time. And I think that that's like a danger, actually, if we're not practicing self-awareness, which is a form of cultivating energy, or we're not cultivating energy. It's like whatever we're doing, whether this is about sex or other things, it's going to lose its thrill, you know. And then
Absolutely.
we're just going to start getting bored of everything, and then we need more and more and more. But when that's going on, what's happening is we're draining the energy, and then people often end up just feeling very numb, whether in their sexual organs or in the rest of the body. Whereas when you cultivate, you can actually turn that around and start to really increase your feeling of the energy, but with less action needed, so to speak.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, there's something called hedonic satiation, and it's just exactly what you're talking about. Whenever you get a whole bunch of something that you like, eventually you're going to need more of it, or you're going to be not as attracted to it. And that's just the key with anything. Like that's just the truth with anything. And so I do like to make sure that we talk about that. Like that's the truth with anything. So yes, with sexual energy, it also is true. And then, like you said, we need to be able to talk about these things so that we can know how to do it consciously, so that we can replenish it, and so that we can work with it.
I mean, we have gift of speech. Yeah, I think apparently dogs, they can understand like 100 words in their lifetime or something like that, you know. This one, obviously, she understands every word, and she's
Every word,
half human, half
clearly.
dog, the guru of the house. But they say the average dog can understand 100 words. Think how many thousands of words, and the way we can put them together, the way we can be so articulate. And it's such a gift that we have this as humans, you know, and that we have the ability to connect with each other and to talk, you know, and to have sex and to talk. It's just amazing and incredible, you know. And I think the more that we do it, the more that we talk about this stuff, I think it actually increases our general sophistication as people, because I think that so many people, if they just actually found a good relationship with their sexual energy, it would change so many things in their life. I mean, this is what I find. It's what I find with people I talk to, that when we actually start to get in a good relationship with our sexuality, so many other problems that we might even think were unrelated start falling into place, because we're not getting the energy drained by having to like block parts of ourselves off, basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, you hit it right on the head. Everything kind of stems from that. If that's our most powerful energy, then if that's going to be out of alignment, then of course that misalignment is going to manifest in everything that you create and everything that you do. So whenever you fix that, it's like it flows out into everything, and it just sort of writes, like you said, something that you didn't even know that was wrong, but it can fix that too.
And I mean, society talks about sex like it's a bad thing, like as if, you know, a guy looking at a woman, which obviously there's ways of doing that can be
Right.
right. But the fact is, hello, we want sex. Yeah, men like women, women like men, women like women, men like
I
men.
mean,
It's a fact of life. And it's like this kind of weird culture. I don't know what you want to call it, the PC culture has tried to just make it like, you know, a guy looking at a woman like it's like the epitome of all sins. And you know, obviously there's like a lot of trauma related to that as well. But actually, when we can just be real about it, instead of like, you know, there being like so much fear around it, and you know, and it's not to say like society gives sex a bad name, and on one level there's a reason for that, because people are in such a bad relationship with their sexual energy. But it's kind of
right.
like, imagine if like every time I cooked for someone, I gave them food poisoning, you know, and that's kind of what's going on with sex for most people, that they're just doing such a bad job. And, you know, and I truly think like even just normal sex in a monogamous relationship, like it can be terribly harmful for people, because people
Yeah.
are just not aligned, you know, and they're not honest, and they're not, yeah.
Well, that's exactly you hit it on the head. So that's almost the exact same analogy that I use, is comparing it to food, because that's what society does, is they tie sex to one of the most dangerous things. Like they'll tie sex to addiction or
Yeah.
abuse and be
Yeah.
like, yeah, see, like rape and all this kind of stuff. And I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah, but that's not
when you type,
sex. That's
you know, when you type sexual into, like when you're writing an article and you put sexual, it will come up with abuse, harassment,
right,
all those words. It will just automatically come up. Even though I always write about sexual energy, it's like not put on, and it's not putting the energy. It's always like abuse, it's always like these
right,
negative things that have to come with it and after it. And it's not to say, you know, obviously, yes, it has the power when we're not
sure.
conscious, when we're not working with it, it has the power to cause all this harm. But at the same time, it also has the power like for so much good. And actually Mantek Chia, well, he says a couple of things on this one. One of them is sexual energy in Taoism, it's what we call a neutral energy. It's not good, it's not bad, but it amplifies everything. So it's an amplifier, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Then another thing he says is sexual energy will always be there. You can't run away from it. So just make it your best friend. Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah. And
exactly.
then the third thing, which is apparently an old Taoist saying, is actually sexual energy is a superfood for your soul. And it's the most powerful spiritual energy that we have. And when we work with it and we allow it to take us on the journey, you know, by consciously working with it, it is absolutely so life-changing.
Absolutely. Oh,
Mm.
that's perfect. That's perfect. But that's the thing, is it does have the power to do so much good, and it does have the power to do bad, but only whenever we don't talk about it, and whenever we
Yeah.
put it down, and if we don't discuss it, we make assumptions.
And people are scared, like, oh, if I don't repress my sexual energy, I'm going to like turn into a rapist. But in reality, when you look at these people that become like sex offenders, you're almost going to find inevitably some massive history of like sexual repression, lack of healthy love and affection and intimacy and connection with women. And, you know, there's going to be some like major energy block basically that's going
Right.
on with them that actually can be healed and can be resolved. And if we had a better way of talking about this, instead of like social media trying to censor us and so on, it would
Exactly.
just make such a huge difference in life.
Yeah. That's my main message right now. Like trying to create unity through free expression and sexual freedom,
Mm,
basically. Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. So this has been so nice, so cool, Mike. Yeah. Right. We've been
Absolutely.
like over an hour. I hope that people have enjoyed it. So I'm going to say goodbye now to the guys on Facebook. Have a great rest of your
Bliss and unity.
um so how do I disconnect the Facebook? Okay. Here. Okay, Facebook. So okay. All right. Okay. Can stop the recording as well. Yeah.